Let's talk about sight reading versus phonics. Because believe it or not, that within the educational world, this is a huge debate. Which one is more effective, phonics or sight reading? So we're just going to examine this. I am a former public and private school teacher. My certification is actually in K through 6 elementary education, and I am currently a homeschool mom. Don't forget about that. I am a homeschool mom to 4 beautiful kids. The youngest actually has Down syndrome, and we also have ADHD in the family. So let's talk about sight reading, and we're gonna start with the sight reading, then we're gonna look at phonics, and then we're gonna look at the two, which one's better, why would you do this one over this one, and then we are actually going to talk about special needs, kids that are mute, that don't talk, they're nonverbal. We're gonna talk about delayed development and how this information about sight reading and phonics can actually help assist you as a parent when you are working with your children in these areas, okay? All of this is actually going to help you when you're working with your child when it comes to reading. Okay, so first things first, let's talk about sight reading. What is sight reading? Now that's gonna be when you see a word and you recognize it just by sight. Of course, we may all remember those high frequency words or whole language learning. It's this idea of the whole word, we learn it, we memorize it, we're good. Lots of flashcards with the words. For example, you may have heard the Fry list, where there's like 1,000 words that you can learn by sight because they don't always follow the phonetic rules. We're going to talk about that in a second, but the phonetic rules, let's just say they're difficult and hard to understand for a little kid. So it's good just to flash those words there. I promise. We're going to talk about that in a second. And sight reading is actually a very natural form of learning how to read. It actually, believe it or not, will start to happen before a kid actually starts to decode a word naturally. So kind of keep that in the back of your brain here. But let's look at phonics. And phonics, I love phonics, okay? Because I do. That's when you're decoding or sounding out each letter following the phonetic rules to figure out what the word is. And phonics is great because it's going to help you find out what certain words sound like without even knowing what it is. Or have never even heard it before. That's decoding. You're gonna learn how to blend words like the SH and the TH. You're also gonna learn the relationship with consonants and with vowels. You're gonna learn about vowel blends, vowel rules, and as a side note, it's not always just one sound per letter, which you may have known. There are multiple sounds, so you memorize all of them. There is an amazing program. I can't, throw confetti any more than I could possibly throw over All About Spelling, All About Reading. It's amazing. I used All About Spelling with all of my kids except my youngest. You know what? I'm lying right now because I do use All About Reading with her. It is actually one that's recommended for kids that have very low, I almost want to say very low on the spectrum of dyslexia, because it does use the Orton-Gilliam method of teaching reading. Very effective. And one of the things that it does is it has flashcards that you work with your kids every single day. You see a letter on there and you have to say every single sound that that letter makes, and you have to do that from memory. One thing that's really nice about learning phonics too, just as a side note, you don't have to memorize that much when it comes to the letter sounds, right? So the letter H says right? That's it. Okay, but the letter A is gonna, say a couple different sounds. And with the All About Spelling, they teach you them in the order of the most frequent sound that you will hear to the least frequent sound that you would hear. So the most common is gonna be ah, and you learn them in that order. But that side note, phonics is just learning how to decode, learning your vowel blends, learning your vowel combinations with consonants and consonant blends, like all that. That's phonics, right? And you're learning how to decode words that you may have never heard of before. The next question is, which is actually better? And right now you can kind of see that they're very, very different, and you might be like, well, why don't we use both of them? But guess what? There are people out there that are very anti sight reading. You're going to get those people that'll say, don't even bother with flashcards. flashcards. Don't even bother with doing pictures with the words underneath it. What you want to do is teach them their phonics with the flashcards right away, and teach them decoding right away, and teach them then all the grammar rules. They're going to follow this pattern of how a child learns how to read. There's a 7-step pattern, which I'm actually, check the timestamps if you want to skip ahead, but I'm going to talk about that pattern in just a little bit. And they follow that pattern to a T with developing the phonics and learning the phonics and learning how to decode. So eventually, by the time the child is 8, they could pretty much read any word that's placed in front of them. And so there is that very phonics only side of the camp. Now, I am going to say this because a lot of people will say, well, there's some words that don't follow the rule. Well, guess what? In English, every single word that you see has a rule attached to it. And yes, I believe it's the Logic of English. It's a book out there will actually teach you all of those rules. And there are some parents that make sure their kids know all of those rules, and that's how they teach them. Totally okay, especially if the children learn that way. But if you don't want to learn all of those rules, that's when sight reading words may come into play. For example, you. We don't really think you, the word you, follows those rules. Said. Said's another one. I mean, when you look at said, if you think, 2 vowels go walk and the first one does the talking, you get the AI. You want to say, said, if you want to read it phonetically, unless you know the rule for said, which is not many people do. So we sight learn it. Of course, that's great. You've got your list of 1,000 words that you sight read. But why would people even bother teaching some of those other words with sight reading, okay? One reason is it really encourages the child. It builds their confidence. Because if they, at that age, start sight reading, because I'm going to tell you what, kids are sponges, they memorize so many things so quickly. If they start memorizing those words right off the back, it makes them feel good. It makes them like, I'm reading really fast because I'm memorizing those sight words. That's actually how you're going to get those young, you always hear those moms say, my child's reading at 3. That's how they're learning how to read. They're reading with the sight words. And they're only reading certain words. They're not learning phonics yet because their brain hasn't developed yet to learn the phonics. So by learning a group of words, that's going to help with their self-esteem because they're going to be faster at reading these words. It also teaches them reading in context, and it also builds their vocabulary when you're doing sight words. So those are some reasons why someone may push more for the sight reading. So in reality, every single child learns differently, and you have to figure out how your child is learning. So phonics is beautiful, so is sight reading. There's so many benefits to both. Now, most children, you're going to find that phonics is going to work best for most children, and sight words kind of help complement. And that's just the normal thing because we do have the ages and stages of phonological awareness. Okay, that's the reality. Your brain develops and you're able to do more when it comes to learning, when it comes to phonics. So basically, just to kind of break it down, is the first one is the awareness of rhyming words, which, by the way, rhyming is great because our brains, we love patterns. We like to memorize in patterns. We like to solve problems logically in our head, and we like to memorize things based on patterns. So when we're learning those rhyming words and learning how to recognize that there is that rhyming pattern, music, that's another thing, that rhyming pattern, all right, that's going to actually, that awareness is going to happen between the ages of 3 and 4. Then you have the awareness of syllables, and that's going to be from age 4 to 5. And if you don't know what syllables are, car, backpack, baby, right, 2 syllables, you got it. Okay, so the next one is awareness of onsets and rhyme. This is sound substitution. That's going to happen at around age 6. So that's like saying what rhymes with at and begins with a C. And they'll say, cat, right? So that's basically that recognition right there. So the fourth one is sound isolation, and that's where you can recognize the beginning, middle, and end of a word. So if you have the word pack, if I say what's at the beginning of pack, they could go p. What's at the end of big, they could go g. What's in the middle, I. Right? So they can recognize those. Now the fifth one is blending, and that's when they can take individual letters and blend them together to create words. So if you C-A-T, you're going to go k-at, and you can blend them together to make cat. And that one actually happens at the age of 6. Now the next one happens around 6 and 7, and this one's going to be phoneme segmentation. And that's when now you can take a word like dog and you can actually sound it out yourself and go d, d, a, o, g, g. And actually that leads right into spelling. And that happens usually around 6 and 7. And the last stage, phoneme manipulation. And that's actually where they could substitute things out, right? So if you have a word, took, for example, took. Let's say you wanted to transform that word into book. How do you do that? And the child will be able to take the T out and put the B, okay? So when they're learning phonics, it's going to, most curriculum will follow that pattern of development and ages. So it doesn't mean that when a child gets older, they're not going to be able to learn how to read, because quite honestly, anybody who wants to learn how to read, whatever age they are, they can learn how to read. It may be a little bit more challenging or a little bit more difficult, but the ability to learn how to do it is still there. Now let's talk about kids that have unique abilities and special needs and learning disabilities and delayed development, because it's a big deal when it comes to learning and sight reading, and it's good to know your child. I cannot stress that enough, because every single child is different. You may find that a kid that has that's actually on the spectrum may learn so well with phonics because it's so, the rules are right there. They may even obsess over they'll get the grammar, that book, Logic of English, and just learn all the rules and be able to decode almost everything. I actually worked with a child. They actually were, I don't want to say nonverbal, but they didn't talk too much, but they could read like no tomorrow. And that's because they just were so good at grasping phonics. And it was phonics and it was the decoding that they were so incredibly good at. But then you're going to have kids on the opposite end, because maybe they're nonverbal, and there is a window I have heard and I have read about within that age range of 3 and 4, where they're developing language and speech, and their brain is developing in that area right there. If they miss that stage of development, it's going to look a little different when they get older. So, and the reason I have read about this and learned about this is because of Down syndrome specifically. A child that has Down syndrome, it takes them a lot longer to learn how to talk. It's the truth. And so that window of learning how to talk, they miss it. And as a result, you may find that a child that has Down syndrome will pick up words so quickly when it comes to sight reading, so much more than if it comes to phonics. Because developmentally, they may not be ready to move on to those different stages of phonics. But they can memorize sight words. Like, it may be very difficult for them to manipulate words out. Take the T out, put the B in, make book. You may do it with them, but that may be something that's very difficult for them to understand. Same with some blending sounds, like the A before E, it's going to say A. They can work on memorizing that, but sometimes it's just better and more encouraging for them to just memorize those cards, flashcards. So, when it comes to special needs and learning disabilities, of course, dyslexia, Orton Gillingham is big on phonics. I'm just going to throw that out there. Phonics. But some learning delayed development, you will find that you will need to spend more time with the sight reading. It doesn't mean ignore the other one, because, for example, with Naomi, you know, we've been doing a lot of flashcards with her, and she's been recognizing some words. It's amazing. She's actually able to read some words with a lot of repetition, because with Down syndrome specifically, you have to do a lot of repetition because it takes time. It takes time. But this girl can read I see and then fill in the blank, the, a, you know, whatever word that she does know. Like, she knows cat, for example. She knows ball. She knows mom. She knows dad. She knows those kind of words. And she can read it. And same with one of her words. Like, some of them she'll just pick up right away as a sight word, and she just has it. But we do the sight reading, but phonics is also a part of it. Learning all the different sounds of the letter, making sure, you know, this is what an H looks like. Don't just look at the H. You want to say, have her read the H. And then we're going to take, because rhyming is awesome, and just saying, and also learning like beginning sounds, isolation sounds. So we're going to look at hat. At, right? We're going to sound that out for her. We're going to say hat. We're going to look at cat. We're going to do those rhyming words back to back, and we're going to practice those. We're going to flashcard those and try to, some of them she'll pick up as sight words, but she'll also get the idea of phonics as well. That's just kind of how we work with her, and what you might see that's different from a kid that doesn't have delayed learning. Now, overall, you know, looking at which is better, sight reading, phonics, and like I said at the beginning of the video, you know what I'm gonna say. It really depends on the child. And I can't encourage a parent any more than I can right now. I mean, I could encourage you more if I was like in front of you. I would be like, I don't know. And the point is, I encourage you to really watch your child and observe how they learn. How do they learn? Observe how they learn. Do they lean more towards the phonics? Do they seem to do better with the phonics, or do they seem to do better with the sight reader? Are you using both? And start digging into different techniques and different games and activities that you can do to help them with their learning in reading. Yes, I know. I was that parent that got Teach Your Child to Read in 100 days. I used like a different version of that, and I did it. We totally did it. It's not hard to teach your kids how to read. Intimidating, yes, not hard. And we did that. It was very based in phonics. But now, you know, that I knew was going to work. But now that I have a child that is going to learn a little bit different than the other kids, you thinking about all these little things, really observing her, is something that has really paid off for us. And I encourage you to do the same. Keep digging, keep reading, keep challenging yourself, keep researching, keep watching videos and learning, because, you know, they don't always learn the same way as other kids. And God has given us these children for us to teach, and He knows that we can do it, and He is right there beside us helping us. Actually, He's right in front of us. He's walking right in front of us and sometimes carrying us through it. Just saying, right? Anyway. Thank you guys so much for watching this video till the end, and I hope you liked it. If you want to learn a little bit more on how I'm working with my daughter with Down syndrome, there's some videos right up here. You can choose one. And until then, I will see you in my next video. Bye.